Hey, welcome back to the Voyage Outdoor podcast. This is episode 10, I think, with Zach.
How's it going, man? I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I'm super pumped. I appreciate having
It's
you.
funny how much different things are just since then, and in ways it's like because like that would have been 2018. It's like
Yeah.
2018 in some ways seems like it was yesterday, in other ways seems like it was so long ago. It's like so it's just as funny to think back, like what will 2028 look like? It's just because of when we first started, it was 2017. And like
Yeah.
just how much different everything is, but not. And it's like it is different, but it's not. But
Yeah.
and in some ways it feels like it wasn't that long ago. In other ways, it feels like it was a lifetime ago.
I know it feels like 2018 was yesterday for me if I think of 2018. And it's just, it's funny though what YouTube or social media, like how fast things can move, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
And who knows it, I think everybody, like, we're starting this journey of YouTube and all that stuff, and I think like anybody, we just want to post it. We love doing it. We're going to film
Mhm.
anyways, and regardless if it goes or not. I think though, I was thinking about this too. I don't want to dive too much into this before we talk, but I
Yeah.
was thinking it's really just consistency.
Hmm.
I mean,
That is a big. I mean,
what do you
it is a
think?
big. It is a big part of it. Like that's all that we. That's like our whole basis when we started was like, how do we just how do we just stay consistent? How do we keep posting content? And like we're always trying like slightly different stuff, but like the whole point and the whole, I guess, like original idea. I don't know if you're familiar with Midwest Whitetail at all, but
Mhm.
that's what we did before we did THP. And like kind of what made it the idea of THP, there's a big evolution of it, but like there's so many like, like little things over the years because we were working there for a while, and Aaron and Greg especially, but we started doing the like daily video blogs for Midwest Whitetail. And while it was a ton of work, it was like really popular. And I remember it's so funny now, but I'm still proud of these days, but it's funny now because I remember we got done doing like a daily video blog for a turkey hunt in Mississippi. This is Warb and I in early 2017, still working at Midwest Whitetail. And we post this like video blog of our first day of turkey hunting, and it gets like 2,000 views. And we're like, dude, nobody's ever got 2,000 views on a turkey hunt before. And like, it was true. Like at that point, like people weren't, I mean, people watched turkey hunting stuff, and there's always been a place for that in hunting media, but like but it was always like just something extra, you know what I mean? And that's what we felt like too with what we were doing. But then all of a sudden there was 2,000 people watching it, and that was just like a update, essentially like a
Yeah.
5 minute
Yeah. Just
daily video
not a
blog.
kill, no nothing. Just, yeah,
Right. And
exactly.
then like the comments were there, and there was feedback, and it was like all positive. And we're like, man, like, we could just keep doing this. And we just kept doing it. And we had been doing it with deer, but with the turkeys is when it was really like, man, people must really like this stuff because it's a turkey. And like,
Yeah.
at that point too, turkey hunting was so like, if you watch turkey hunting on TV, even to this day, you're not going to watch a slow hunt. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then I think
Yeah.
though that was what really showed us that it was relatable is like, oh, well, people are gonna want to watch us walk around and not even hear a gobble. 2,000 people.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like so
And
it's cool.
I think that's crazy too. It's like, did you guys know? Oh, well, I'll wait to ask all these questions,
Yeah,
but
sure,
I
sure.
really wanted to know, like, I mean, the shift, right, from Outdoor Channel to YouTube.
Hmm.
Now, I think it was gonna shift in that time span. It's like you guys hit it. I mean, it's still someone could join YouTube now and still hit but the shift, right, of it going from Outdoor Channel to everybody lives on YouTube for hunting stuff now. And I will say you guys probably hit it right and were awesome. And then everybody and helped bring it over to YouTube. I would say you know, and I definitely want to give you your flowers there where you really helped it. Did you guys see that though? Like that shift was going to happen.
I
You
felt
just
like,
kind
yeah,
of,
I felt like it was so far past when it should have, honestly.
yeah,
Like, so I'm 29 years old. I've been watching hunting YouTube because I didn't have the outdoor channel. I've been watching like dudes with a GoPro on their gun since when YouTube started, like 2000. I remember watching YouTube a ton in 2009 and 10 for sure. Like, I don't know prior to that how much, but I know by 2009 for sure I was watching it like all the time. I only watch stuff on YouTube. So like I felt like when, you know, by the time we made it to that point where it was 2017, it's like, you know, we wanted to take it to YouTube, and like Midwest Whitetail wasn't as set up for that, I guess, like
yeah,
with sponsors and everything. It was different, you know. So it was kind of hard to get that ball rolling. So we're sitting there in 2017. It's like, well, if we don't do it now, we're not gonna like we're
yeah,
gonna be late. Because all it would have taken is somebody else to do what we did to beat us to that spot. And it's just like
yeah.
I honestly think, like, I guess to your question is like we were lucky in the timing, but it was just because we pulled the trigger, because anybody else could have done it just right there before us, and it would have been them, and we would be, you know, secondary. And it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy to me that it didn't happen earlier, honestly, because
I agree, and it was crazy because you said you're 29, I'm 28, and
yeah,
I watched the Outdoor Channel a lot. We had it off and on. We switched packages as kids, but
yeah,
sometimes the Pursuit Channel, I think I watched that, but YouTube,
yeah, yeah.
I don't think I watched YouTube until college. So 2012 is when I
Mm-hmm,
started watching hunting on YouTube, probably.
mm-hmm.
But it wasn't like you were relating to the people. You were
Right.
watching the hunt
Oh
and
yeah,
you know,
yeah. And that's like
and
what I was saying too, is like I was watching these videos that were like, I mean, really just extremely poor quality.
yeah,
But it was, for one, it was the content that I could reach because it was on demand.
mhm.
I didn't have to worry about what package my parents wanted to pay for, right? Because like I sure as hell wasn't going to pay for it.
Yeah,
The only time I ever watched outdoor or sportsman channel, and I honestly couldn't tell you which one it was even, was when I was at my grandparents, and I would get to watch it, and I would just binge. You know, I'd sit there for hours and watch that. And
same, yeah,
same thing though with YouTube though, when I started finding that it's like, okay, literally anybody's posting anything that they want on YouTube. So I can find what I want. And I was watching, I mean, all kinds of different videos, and there wasn't necessarily anything that I was following, but that was what was missing. You know, it was like, why isn't there just like a show on here? And, you know, Midwest Whitetail eventually made it onto YouTube, and I guess probably, well, I'd say definitely by 2014, they were on YouTube. But like, even that was like, that wasn't their main platform, I guess, where it was like, there's nobody making content for YouTube.
yes,
And it just felt like that was missing. And everything in the outdoor industry, in the, I say outdoor hunting, because I think fishing can be a little bit ahead, but even that is
yeah,
still behind. It's like everything in the hunting industry is like so far behind, dude. It's like, it's kind of embarrassing at times when you're like, this is the industry that we're in, that they're like worrying about this. I mean, we still deal with it, like literally dealing with stuff like daily, where people that we work with and stuff, like they don't trust what we're doing. And it's like, I mean, like, well, this
yeah.
isn't TV days anymore. It's like,
I can't even believe. Yeah, no, I agree. I see it all the time. You talk about, and I don't want to go down like even just TikTok, right? People can
mm-hmm,
love or hate it, but
mm-hmm.
that is one of the most powerful tools if used correctly. You can reach so many. If you're selling a product, if you're selling one
Oh yeah,
individual product, that is the most powerful tool that we
I know,
possibly
dude.
have.
And it's like, it's one of these things too, where like, I'm like, we, this is something, this is a total problem with THP, or not a problem, I guess, but but a dilemma that I have where I'm like, okay, like we've been doing what we're doing. We're going to get old. We're getting old. In 5 years, you get old when it comes to social media stuff. And it's just like the TikTok. Yeah. It's like, I send a bunch of goofy Snapchats to my buddies, and that's like 50% of our TikTok, where it's like, we could literally be doing reels, TikToks, and like, we need somebody pretty much full time doing that. But it's like, we don't have even the manpower to do it because to continue to do what we're doing. So it's like, it's always going to evolve past what your knowledge of it is. And I feel like at 29, I don't think of myself as far as like, the way I feel and, my personality. I don't feel old, but like, I also am not hip to all, it's like, I'm just now starting to finally even wrap my head around like what a goal for TikTok and reels would even be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Instead of it, but as of right now, it's just been my goofy Snapchats that I send to my buddies, it's like,
yeah. It's funny you say that. Like it's funny. I feel like I'm getting up there. Like I feel like the 19, 20, 21-year-olds understand that stuff so more, but I have been studying Instagram reels, TikToks, because and I don't like, it's not like I just love it. Like I just do it because like, I feel like those are the most powerful tools that like are around me. Cause I'm trying to start a business. I'm trying to start a YouTube channel, I'm trying to start a hunting brand. And I'm like, man, you know what? Like these are, and then it was like little things like testing the waters on things. And like TikTok, for instance, I took a clip from the Wild Turkey doc, Dr. Mike Chamberlain. Okay. Love that guy. He's awesome.
Yeah.
Took a clip from him. Okay. Why the turkey population is declining. Okay. Put it on TikTok. I had like 4 followers on TikTok, Voyage Outdoor account. Within like a day, it went to 300 followers. My YouTube video, I said, check out the full video on our YouTube channel. It went from 50 views to almost 400 views after 2 days of posting that clip. It got enormous amount of engagement on the comments. Now, these are big numbers for me, right? But but that was like the point. It was like, oh my gosh, why am I not taking, and I watch Gary Vee, right? A lot. I don't know if you know that influencer. But his strategy is kind of, it's actually like, it's true. You take an hour podcast, you break it up, and you guys are doing it. You break it up into 5 pieces of content, 7, 8, 9, whatever you can, and you post them all over every platform. And then you can reuse, right? You can reuse stuff later on. And so I'm studying that stuff super hard because, and once again, I don't understand TikTok, but I get that how powerful it can be, especially stuff.
And like ultimately, like what you just said, though, it's like, it's just, to me, like you can always reuse stuff, but ultimately, like the reusing is great to be able to put it on different platforms in different short form, long form, medium form, whatever, like super short form, however you want to look at it. But like the other important thing is to constantly be getting new stuff. To me, like that's the thing that we do really well, I think. And like what I think that we always got to make sure that we continue to do is make sure that we're always going out and get, like, because right now we could go a whole season, we could go an entire season and just repurpose content where we do hunt breakdowns. We could do like dive into fine details of every hunt that went on, and we could make an entire, like, we wouldn't even have to go hunting, honestly, for multiple years to keep getting content going. But it's important to me, or in my opinion, at least, to continue to get all that new stuff every year, where then that continues to build. And maybe someday way down the road, you can really back off creating the fresh stuff. But it's like, to me, in the next 10 years, it's like, we got to just keep getting all that new content, because look how much it's just like, when you look at how much you get in 5 years. Now it's like, okay, you add 10 more years to that. It's like, man, like we're really going to be like,
I know,
to the point where people already forget what happened in 2017 and 18.
They do. Like, I forgot every Ranch Fairy episode you guys did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I rewatched the ones this year thinking, oh, they did do some 2 years ago. I don't remember what those were. So I went back and watched them, of course. But like, that's the purpose. You went back to Troy, right? Troy.
Yeah.
Troy's place again, brought in new stuff. And like you said, I forgot what was talked about 2 years ago at his place,
Mm-hmm.
or I think it
Mm-hmm.
was 2 years ago, right? You guys were there, and then last year you
Yeah.
were there, and then so I forget all that, and I'm like, oh, new stuff, right? New. So I agree. I love it. That's what I'm trying. It's funny. I think my plan was this off season. I'm like, what are we gonna do? We're a new channel. Like we need some good hunts. We need all that. That's great. But I was like, why don't I do a podcast? And I'll
Mm-hmm.
DM a bunch of people. I didn't think anybody was going to answer. It's been great. It's been really good. I got a bunch of people to come on, but I was like, I'll do a podcast, and that'll be our content through the non-hunting season, and I can
Mm-hmm.
get that out, get to meet great people, talk about hunting. I love talking about hunting, and so yeah, that was kind of our plan. So I love that what you said. So just
Well,
keeping.
and the other thing is too is just film everything. It sometimes
That's
seems
hard.
ridiculous.
Kind of get
Like
my mind.
that's the biggest problem with me and anybody else that, especially like when we bring interns on. Like I'm not saying I'm the best at it. Like I can always be better. But like when we bring on these, I've had this conversation so many times where it's just like, this is like, what the best videos are? The best videos are when we are like just being ourselves and we're hanging out and like we're just catch like that at camp. They'll sit there and be telling like one of the new guys that, and they'll just be like, yeah, I really like that. It's like, well, then you got to do it. You know what I mean? Like it sounds so crazy, but like you can't like plan it. You literally just got to be rolling the damn camera at all times. And it's like, if you're not, then you're not going to get it. And you can't like go back and force stuff because then it gets awkward. Where it's like, you almost have to just get like you and your people that you're with and your characters, right? It's like, you got to just get them accustomed to just being themselves, rolling the camera at all times. And like, you're going to get a bunch of stuff that's, like if you're, I guess if you're anything like us, we're just we're goofing off half the time. There's so many things that, we can't just put in the videos of us just, cussing like sailors or whatever, like just being, goofy and, getting rowdy or whatever. But then through that stuff, you still get really good, conversation where like, yeah, maybe we're goofing off for 10 minutes straight, but then all of a sudden it's like, hey man, like, I was really thinking about that spot over there. And you maybe like have this little snippet of conversation that just fits in, and it's natural, and it doesn't have that like,
the camera, because when a camera's pointing at you and you're supposed to talk
it
about
changes
something, it changes. And you said it's like the hardest thing. So you're literally talking about in a scenario the other day. We're all on a call and something happened, and Jared's like, why don't we record our Zoom calls that we meet weekly? And I'm like, and that's the prime example of like, no one wants to hear our whole Zoom call about plans and ambitions, but there was a snippet at the end, and it's like, it's so hard to capture that stuff. There's so many times where like, dude, why don't we record that? That was, that was perfect. And it's hard. Like even just me turning on a camera when I go do something in the woods, when I go, it's like, you got to re-engineer your mind almost to be like camera, and then just go do what you're going to do. Let the camera be on,
It's well, and like, I look back to like those days. So like I was using like 2009, 10, 11, whatever, all through college. So all the way up to 15. So like when I was in high school, I had a camera and I filmed everything. I've been filming for a long time. And it's like, looking back at that, it's so hilarious. And like looking back at that footage, like something cool would happen and we shut the thing off immediately. Like as soon as the action was over, it's like, shut the camera. It's like, don't go to somebody and get their reaction. Don't like, it's like, oh, big buck just went through. Okay, shut the camera. It's like, it's so hilarious. Like the patchy footage that we had, because even then we just were like, these things were too expensive for us at the time. We're 16 years old. It's like, oh, we can't buy a $24 SD card or whatever the hell they were. I don't know. But it's like, it's so funny because we just would try to save all the space that we could on here. That way we could film more, but we weren't filming more. We were just trying to only filming. And it's just funny because like, you just don't, I mean, again, until you do it and you get more experience, you don't know. That doesn't make any Like,
Yeah.
if I were to tell myself then film everything, it'd be like, how would I film everything? Where do I put it? Like, even just understanding hard drives, like those are things that, like, you know, the more experience you get with it, it's like it starts to play out. But it's like, you could, to me, you're way better off to just film everything and have it for forever, because at some point, you know, it could come in handy. Like, even just getting like something that I could do, and I know I could do a better job of, is just like packing. I'm sure at some point I could make something out of like packing my packing my truck up to go hunting. You know, it's like that's part of hunting, but I don't always like, you know, it's like, I just got to get ready to go. So I just
Yeah.
put it off.
And it's funny you say that too, is because in your guys' conversations, you guys do this really well. I want to get to this, but when you're talking with somebody, you show clips. Just when you're talking and describing something, you guys show a lot of clips of you in that moment of what you're describing. And so like I guess the content would be great for that. Like if you're just walking through a ditch and you're talking about how we find ditches and then we can get in, and then you're showing you what, and it's just like little things like that. And it's hard. I'm saying it's hard for me right now. I'm just learning it. You know, I filmed here and there, but I've never thought that in depth of like, okay, emotions, show the person, you know, it's get the kill. That's, hey, just get the kill, get the animal, you know, and so anyways, no, it's neat. It's cool. I love doing it. I love learning about it. So.
Oh, it's fun, man. I mean, it's something that, like, you know, it's pretty funny. I look at it now and it's like, man, I really have been doing this for a long time. And there are a lot of like, you know, I guess to be honest, like there's reason to sometimes believe that it's like, oh, what we do is nothing that special. But at the end of the day, it is like, you know, especially when you combine all of our experience with it, it's just decades of experience of filming and editing, and how much you learn doing that is super valuable. And like, we wouldn't, I mean, that's really the thing too, is like, you know, a lot of people ask like I mean, similar to like what you said, like, did you know YouTube? It's like, I mean, a big part of why we knew YouTube was going to be a thing is just because we had been like experimenting with all these things for so long. Like, you know, and you look at like Greg's been filming stuff for 20 years.
Yeah. You know, I think it's awesome. I mean, you know, I think, I don't know. I'm sure you guys humbly realize, you know, what you've kind of done for I think for hunting world and popularity of hunting and getting people out to public land. But did you guys always enjoy hunting public land? Midwest Whitetail Days, there's a lot of private days, I'm sure, and some public mixed in. Was like when you started that, where you're like, hey, because I feel like you have to when you start a YouTube channel, you have to have an area of like this is where we're going to really hit on. Was it always going to be public, or was it just like, hey, we've hunted public, we've had success? How did that kind of work out?
Well, I think for all of us, it was like a little bit different. I mean, pretty similar background, I guess, is important. We all hunted like permission. We either hunted permission, public land, or family properties. And like, that's every one of us. You know, nobody had like, you know, a dad that had, you know, this gigantic property. Everything was pretty small, and like just really getting into wherever we could. And, you know, when we were at Midwest Whitetail, together, we started hunting public land. Like, Ward was doing it before, doing it for Midwest Whitetail before like I got there. But I guess personally, and again, everybody had experience hunting public land like forever, you know, all the way back to the beginning of starting deer and turkey hunting. But like what I think for me, you know, I do remember it very, like, for me, it was very, there was a big turning point in my hunting interest and career and everything. So I'll give you a quick background.
Yeah,
so like,
that's one of my questions, but we've kind of just navigated which I love it. So yeah, I wanted to know, kind of like, give me some background. How did you get into hunting and all that?
So when I first started hunting, I was hunting with my dad, my grandpa's. I was like little, like I barely remember my first hunts, you know. I shot a squirrel when I was like 5 with my grandpa, and I was deer and turkey hunting at 5, 6, sitting out there, you know. Never shot anything though until I was like 9. I shot my first deer after missing some. Shot my first turkey when I was 10 after missing some. And but I was always really into it. Like from the time I was like a little kid, before it, like when I could barely even walk, there's pictures of me with my mom's curling iron held up like a gun. Like I was just obsessed with it because the people that I was looking up to, like, we're doing it, my family members. And I really got into it, and I would say in my teen years really took off with it. Like I remember there being a lot of, like, literally every weekend me and my dad were traveling to go hunting, like literally every single weekend. And I remember all up through high school, like double headers in baseball really annoyed me because I couldn't turkey hunt that day at all. You know, I couldn't get out in the woods at all on a Saturday because I'd be playing baseball all day. And you know, we were really lucky to have places to go. My grandpa does have 2 80-acre properties that are about 3/4 of a mile apart and field in between them. I hunted that, and then for deer a lot. And then there's never, it's super weird, there's never really been turkeys on it. Like I don't totally understand that. It's in a beautiful area of Ohio. I have no idea why there's no turkeys. And then where I grew up in Western Ohio, there's just like very, very, very low populations of turkeys in general, just because of it's all crop field. I mean, if you imagine like I think of like most of central and northern Indiana and Illinois, where there's just like not any, like there's almost no trees. Like that's what I grew up.
Nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. And like where there are trees, it's small, square, you know, rectangular type woodlots that don't have a lot of habitat in them. Turkeys it's just not enough for them.
Yeah.
So also when I was a kid, when I shot my first deer in turkey, was on a property that it was like a guy that my grandparents were renting from. He let us go back there and hunt while they were renting there. So it's like, you know, just like they had their old house that they were renting, and their newer house that they lived in, and back behind there was a couple 100 acres that we could hunt. Well, there was turkeys there, and that's why we hunted there. And you know, without going into like way too much backstory, there was always places for my dad and my grandpa to go. But by the time I was 12, my grandparents had moved out of that place, and we could no longer go back there and hunt. Well, all of a sudden we're faced with like no place to turkey hunt, right? Because there's just like, there's none over at the family property, and there's none where I grew up. The only place that there is public land, because that's where there was enough habitat, where you've got, you know, you can find river bottoms that have turkeys, you can find, you know, and so much of Ohio, there's hilly terrain and there's unbroken timber, you know, there's turkeys there. Same thing with like southern Missouri, southern Illinois, southern Indiana, like all those, you know, it's the same across that kind of on there. So when I was 12, I started hunting public land. So fast forward through my teen years and into high school, into college. And again, I was always spending a ton of time hunting in general.
Yeah.
But I started, like, especially in college, started a shift where all of a sudden I was like having so much more fun turkey hunting. And I went to Ohio University, which is in Southern Ohio. And now I've got like all the public land that I ever want right at my fingertips, 10 minutes down the road. I mean, anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour, like I've got literally just public land everywhere, and all different types of public land, wildlife areas, state forest, national forest, whatever. I can hunt it all. So I went from having basically literally no public land where I grew up, having to travel to those public land areas every weekend, driving 2-3 hours, and went from doing that to now I've got it all the time. And I also went from only hunting, you know, a day or two, because like, again, I'm living Monday through Friday in Western Ohio where there's no turkeys, driving those 2-3 hours to hunt a day or maybe two. But again, once I was in high school and playing baseball in the spring, it's like it really made it hard. So I go from barely hunting, like always loving turkey hunting, but like barely hunting, to I was hunting from the time I was 18 till now. I've hunted every bit of like.
How many classes were skipped for a good
That's what I was about to say. That's what I'm about to say. So it's like I went from hunting like, in the grand scheme of turkey season, maybe like 6 or 8 days, like at the absolute max, to hunting like 25 plus days every season, because I was slick enough to schedule my classes to where I had Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I didn't start class until like 10:30. And then Tuesday and Thursday, I didn't even have class until like 12:30. And I did that all the way through college, to where like every single spring. Now, it also, I will say, for anybody that may be listening that's thinking about scheduling their college classes this way, I was prepared to be in school for an extra semester because I was scheduling that way. Like it was setting me back, but like it was so sweet to be able to, because I could go every day.
Is that where
I
you
literally
really
could go every
is
day.
that time when you really cut your teeth on public and really start to understand? Is that the time,
Well,
Or
yes
was it
and
the
no,
young
because
days?
I always hunted public land. That's the thing, is like when we were traveling every weekend, we were always hunting public land for turkey from the time I was 12 till now. But hunting more private land for deer, just because we had more places that were better for deer, but still hunting public land for deer in some like some, not as much. But then in college, we started really hunting public land for deer and turkey more, but mostly turkey. And I was still going up to my grandparents' property. So this is important now. This is probably the most important part. And I've said this before on other, podcasts and our podcasts and stuff, but I do think this is important and would help people understand like how I started doing like the weird things that I do, like hunting off the ground all the time. It's like, I was watching hunting media and I was seeing like food plots and private property and blinds, and like everything was this real staged up hunt. And, obviously there's nothing wrong with that. Like it is what it is. That's what a lot of, I shouldn't say a lot of people, but it is what some people do. Well, I was trying to mimic that. So while I was hunting in college and all, I was always hunting turkeys on public land. I was always like kind of resorting back to when I would go to my grandpa's, I was hunting that like something that I was controlling. Well, I was, we were able to control things because it's,
you're the only variable out there.
And and there was buddies of mine that we all hunted there together, and we were kind of all on the same page. But the problem is we were all just like, we were forcing that idea where we're going to hunt like conservative and we're going to sit back on everything. Well, especially when I went to college, that took over because we started watching Midwest Whitetail, specifically Midwest Whitetail. And it was like, that's how the whole strategy of not just the main show characters, but there was regional shows, and we watched all those regional shows. Well, all these guys are having success doing that. And we just weren't having success. We were seeing, deer on trail cameras and stuff like that, but it was giving us this like false hope. And all of a sudden it was like, I remember it was about 2013 or 14, those years, where there was one specific hunt where I remember looking at my friend Ben, he's on a bunch of videos and stuff. I hunt with him still all the time, and his brother Keith. But Ben and I were sitting in stand together, and I looked at him, I'm like, should we stop doing this? Like, should we stop deer hunting? Like, this sucks, man. Like year in and year out, we're just like trying to do this, and it's so boring. Like sitting back waiting is so boring. And I was starting to really hate it. And we were just only ever seeing like the tiniest little bits of success in the grand scheme of a whole season. We'd hunt so much, and we were just seeing this little success, but it wasn't fun. It was not like turkey hunting, where turkey hunting, on the other hand, we're seeing all this success. We're hunting public land. It's supposed to be harder. We're hunting public land, but the way we're doing it is so much different. We're active. We're aggressive. We're not worried about like spooking anything. So we're just hunting super aggressive. And again, fast forward to about to graduate college, and I get the internship for Midwest Whitetail. Me and my friend Michael Prente, who were both at OU at the same time, already like great friends. We both got hired as interns, so we get to move out to Iowa.
Yeah.
And I remember the day that I was moving out there, I decided I'm never hunting private land again. Personally, I'm never going to do it.
Yeah.
And is the best decision I ever made. And the reason I made that decision is I was so sick of what I was doing. And I knew that if I hunted public land, it would just get me out of my comfort zone. And that eventually evolved to hunting off the ground only. You know, I've only hunted off the ground. I think I got into a tree stand one time in 2018. I think it's the last time. And since then, it's all been off the ground.
Like, yeah, I guess so. That was my question today. I was wondering, I hadn't seen you in a tree stand in a while or tree saddle or anything. So was it that turkey mentality on public? Like, is that kind of what you're referring to, is like you run and gun? Well, it's public. Like, these deer are being pushed regardless. Like, we can push and not have to, because you know how it is, private land. You don't want to bump. You don't want to do this. You don't want to be walking around your property.
That's exactly what it was, is the turkey.
What do you think the key to, if someone's going to go to public and never climb up in a tree, like what would you be like, okay, you need to listen. This is what you need to know.
What's something that you need to know? I mean, there's so many instinctive things that I think that you just start to learn. The thing that you need to know is that if it's something that you really want to do, you can't just expect it to just like all come naturally. Like, you're going to have to make mistakes. And, you know, things like just having experience turkey hunting, you know, gun hunting, maybe you set up on the ground more often, just like thinking about those things and what you can get away with. And the number one thing is like, if you're moving, that's when deer see you. I mean, they really aren't that good visually, you know. I think that we give them a whole bunch of credit to where like, we have to get up in this tree. It's like, dude, you can literally be standing against a tree and have no front cover. And a deer, if you're not moving, just isn't going to see you. Like, they can't, like, they don't see like we do. They don't pick apart that detail. Like, they're looking, their vision just, I can't explain to you exactly the science behind what their vision is, but like, they don't see the same way as we do. Or you would never get away with it. Or I shouldn't say you'd never, but you'd have a harder time.
Yeah.
But, you know, I just think that getting my feet wet a little bit and having somebody to kind of support the idea and go with me and trust it, like Jake did, you know, that really helped things. And then just, again, finding like a new love for hunting and finding this new, like, I feel like I'm a well-rounded hunter now because of that, where like, I just feel like looking back on my tree stand days is like, I was limited in what I was experiencing out there. Like, I only experienced a deer coming into me being elevated. Well, like, I learned how to get away with that, but that's pretty limited. So I felt like I just had more challenges, and I honestly did. I stopped caring at all about what anybody else thought about it. Like, that was really challenging for a while, where like, you read comments and like, even, you know, even multiple years after, there was a lot of people that really hated it. Now I think people are more used to it now because it's been like, I've been doing it for a while, but like, there was a lot of like commenting about like, man, this guy's doing nothing but ruining public land. Like, he's spooking all the deer and like running the deer off. That's not how you hunt. Get in a tree stand, you long-haired idiot. You know, I mean, like, a lot of stuff where if you read into that too much, but it was like, I don't care. Like, I know that first off, I'm not the only one that wants to do this. I'm not the only one that is doing it.
Yeah.
I'm just maybe the only person that's like filming it right now.
Yeah.
But it's like, there's other people that do this. Like, this isn't a strategy that's been like, so, you know, a lot of people, I think it's important to understand that this is strategy that I've picked up from other people. Like, I didn't create ground hunting. It's like, people were ground hunting a long time ago. You know, obviously at one point there wasn't even a tree stand invented. So it's like, that's what the opportunity was. But I just think that, there's so many fine details, but the number one thing that you got to remember if you want to do this is just go fail, like go fail
Yeah.
big time, you know?
And you talked about a big thing is caring about what people think. The hunting industry is funny about, like what people think, right?
Yes.
They posted up. It's not cool to post your 120-inch deer, even if it was killed on public, but that's an accomplishment. No one should be afraid to,
Well,
you know,
okay, here's a great example of like exactly what you just said. The hunting industry is weird about it. It's not just weird, it's honestly really embarrassing sometimes, where
yeah,
I was on Instagram this morning, and Giannis from Meat Eater, he
yeah,
posted
oh,
a
yeah,
he posted a video of him shooting his bow. And it's especially with bow hunters, it seems like it's just like the amount of negativity. He's
oh,
literally he shoots one arrow, and the amount of negativity in the comment section, it's
yeah,
like commenting on his shirt, commenting on punching the trigger. It's like, oh man, we all got to be just so perfect to be,
yeah,
and like that's where it's like it's the same thing with the ground hunting. It's like, oh, we've got to all just do it exactly the way that, the majority wants us to. And I'm just not all about that. It's everybody's got a different interest, and everybody's got different, you know, there's certain people that just have a different type of patience than I do. I have patience. It's not the same as somebody that can sit in a tree stand for 7 days straight. I got
yeah,
a great friend, Brett Joy, that he lives in New Hampshire. He can sit in a tree stand and not see deer for like 6-7 days. I cannot do that. I'll go
yeah.
insane and I won't enjoy it.
Bill
I
can
just,
sleep in his blind overnight.
yeah, exactly.
Anyways,
And I,
yeah, I
I
know.
just I can't get excited about those things, but that doesn't mean that he's wrong for it. I mean, it's like, or I would ever say
Yeah.
like, oh, that's the wrong way to do it. It's just not for me. And I think that that's super important to remember. Like, take what is your style, and maybe some days you like to sit down. Maybe some days you got a different. Maybe you drank more coffee that day, and you want to go run around in the woods and try to, spot and stalk something. But it's just all about like finding what you like to do, and what I like to do is not carry around a bunch of extra gear, and I just like to sneak through the woods and look for deer. I mean,
Yeah.
sneak through
I,
the woods or get up on a high point or whatever. It's like it looks so different in every situation. But to me,
yeah.
it's just made it fun again, to the point where like, dude, I
Yeah.
cannot wait to deer hunt with a bow, just because, or a gun for that matter, but
Yeah.
just deer hunting in general off the ground, and still hunting and spot stalking is the most fun thing.
Look, yeah, I love it. I mean, my big thing is I have fallen victim to being worried about what everyone's going to think. I've done that. I've done it. There's times when it sleeps back into my mind, right? But,
Mm-hmm.
my big thing, and what's funny is you talked about the hate on the video. We posted a video of one of the guys, Jared, in our group, Carcio. He shot his bow. Well, he went on a run that morning. He's prepping for elk season. He had a vest, and his vest holds M4 mags, and he shoots with that. And he never took the M4 mags out of his vest, the plated. So he just threw the plates in, made it heavy, went for his run, got done with his run, was shooting his bow, and there's M4 mags in his thing. And someone leaves a comment, is like, I don't always shoot my bow. When I do, I carry my M4 mags. And I got so excited. I was like, guys, we finally have some hate comments. We're
Yeah.
making it. We're making it. Like that's how I
Oh
thought
yeah.
of it. I'm like, dude, we made it. We're big time now. I just laughed, and I was like, I was like, I was gonna be like, thanks for the interaction or thanks for the engagement, and be a little like funny with it, but I didn't
Right.
say anything. I was just like, hey, because I know I don't want to get all personal, but like you're supposed to have like empathy and be like, what? Like if they took time out of their day to hate on my video, like thanks for watching, thanks for the view. So but it was just funny. I had to tell you that same thing. One
Yeah.
arrow shot. They found something that was funny. And
Well,
honestly, it is what it
it,
is. But
it is what it is. It is totally what it is. And I think that like, you know, it's just something that I guess I brought it up, and maybe by bringing it up, it's like, oh, like it really never, you can't let it bother you at all. and you can't read into like what other people are saying ever. Now that might even be just like your buddies. And like, I guess I've always been probably, I mean, dude, I got like long hair. Like, you know how much crap that's got me over the years, like
Oh yeah.
from anybody. It's like, I just, you know, you get people like literally from the time I was in college, you know, it's just like people disagree and want to talk smack or whatever you call it. And it's just like, you just got to be confident in what you're doing and just know that you're enjoying it, know that you're happy.
Yeah.
If you're happy and you're doing it and you
Yeah.
like what you're doing, like who cares what anybody else thinks? Because like you're all that matters. So again, when it came to the ground hunting thing, while I knew it was making some people upset, which is really just unfortunate for them, you know, because I was happy. I was having more fun than ever. And while I wasn't like, you know, it was just upsetting them. So it's like, I guess that's just their problem. And I think that that's with anything, you know.
Yeah,
Obviously.
I just want someone, if someone new to hunting that watched this video, I want them to take what you said about like you didn't care about. I'm sure you got a lot of hate in the early days, like really early on, and now people are asking you, "How's the ground hunt?" You know what I'm saying? There's haters, but there's people probably asking you, "Hey, give me some tips. Give me," like I just did, and so. But in the early days, there probably wasn't anybody when he started. It was all probably all like, have fun with that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if I could just like, if I could go back and just get a list of all the comments from, you know, the early days saying, get a haircut, get into a tree stand. It's just like, okay, good one, you know?
Yeah. And that's I just want someone listening to realize like, there's something you want to do in the hunting world, just go do it.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, you know,
as long as you're ethical, you know?
Yeah. It's like, it's just to me, it's, you know, having to do what everybody kind of wants you to do or what is the norm, like, then how is any new strategy ever going to get created? How is any like new style ever going to get created? You know, how much like, and you know, for so long, like until I saw Whitetail Adrenaline, it's just like truly I had seen you know, you've seen it. Like you've seen, I mean, there wasn't even, it didn't even feel like there could be a hunt that was produced at that time that was going to be something new. It was just kind of the same story over and over again. And like, that's another reason I like hunting off the ground is like, I can't tell you what it's going to look like and it's never going to look the same. And like, it hasn't. I mean, you can go down through the list of our ground hunts and like, you know, one that really comes to mind is the one that Aaron had a couple of years ago where he was in a tree stand, had spotted the buck, realized it was going to go downwind and makes a move to get in front of it, shoots it at 10 yards, you know, not even looking at him at all. And it's like, okay, that's something I haven't seen before. That's the type of content that I want as a viewer. So like,
that's
why
what
not?
I want. Yes, that's what I want to see. Yeah.
Like, to be honest, had that buck just walked right up the ridge and they shot him at the same distance from that tree, it would have been cool. But we've seen that before. You know?
No,
like,
I agree. It was crazy.
What he brought to that hunt gives me the confidence to do that same thing. And I think that is what makes, you know, thinking outside of the box, finding your own style so unique and cool. And that's what I love as a viewer. So that's what I want to try to shoot for, to bring other viewers, you know. There's so many things too that like I think that you learn with experience in those moments. And like that's what I say when it's like, go fail, where if you're sitting there like, I don't know, then you're already like, then you've already messed up. Like you've messed up. That's the only way you can mess up is by not trying. Like if your gut's telling you something, just go do it. And like, also like something that I think is healthy is to just like absolutely blow it. Like to go out there and just absolutely blow it. Because there's so many times that we absolutely blow it and we literally kill the deer like that day or the next day or the next 3 days. And I think that it's just so funny when I really look back on the 2017, 18, 19 seasons where it's like, I mean, there were no, and I feel like I've almost went backwards, and this is something I want to get back into in 2022 is like, push it. Like, why not push it? Why not like be like kind of like out of the norm aggressive? And I'm not saying we haven't been in 2020 and 2021, it's just like I look back on some hunts and some states that I was in, and it's like, man, I was kind of still playing it like a little safe because I was trusting something a little bit too much, and I wasn't just trusting my gut, or I wasn't just honestly not caring. Like I feel like for whatever reason we've been trained to care so much, and honestly, dude, when you care too much, then you don't even put yourself in some situations that help you kill deer. Like I was talking with somebody a few days ago about like the strategy of bump and dump, and spooking a buck and then killing him. And I can like think of like easy like 5 examples of where we like straight up spooked the deer, and it's like the worst thing you could ever do. And then because of having the worst thing ever, we killed that deer like tons of times.
Yeah.
And
I think most
it's,
people, they spook that deer and they're discouraged and they just back out.
They're done.
Yeah,
That's
they're
it.
done. Yeah.
We're done. Like
yeah.
we failed. And
yeah.
Oh man, you couldn't be more wrong. Like,
yeah.
And I think about days where day in and day out, it's the same story. Like the one, well, he's up here, but the one that's back there, I shot in Ohio with my friend Ben.
Oh, yeah.
And like we bumped that buck that morning during gun season. We bumped him in the hills, and he took off, ran across the valley. We made a long loop around him. Man, this is a whole story. I tell this one a lot, but it was just one of those moments where everything played out, and we just kept going with our gut. And we basically we spooked him at whatever 9 a.m. We watched which way he ran. We picked the spot where we thought he would go to next. We looped around that, made a big loop all day, circling to get the wind in our favor, and then scouted our way back towards that spot that we had basically made an X on the map, thinking this is where he's bedded now.
Yeah.
And he literally walked to us, and we shot him. It was gun season, shot him at 40 yards away, feeding on acorns. He had no idea we were there. And it's like, had we not spooked that buck, he wouldn't be up there right now. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
So
you would never even know he was there if you never saw him. Yeah.
No. And I just think that there's so many days where, I really like to think of it like this too. The term hunting to me doesn't mean just like stationary all day. Yeah. Whether you're on the ground or in a tree stand, like hunting, like to me is like the act of pursuing something. You're hunting, you're looking for it. So if I'm sitting in the truck and my girlfriend starts looking for something, I always say, what are you hunting? She's actively looking for something, right? And it's the same thing when you're out in the woods, like just sitting in a stationary position. Like if you've had prior knowledge to where, okay, like I'm not saying that's all bad. I'm just saying like something should lead you to that point that you are set up now and you're trusting that spot. Yeah. Versus like just going in there and hoping, just going into the woods and plopping down and just setting up. It's like, well, what is making me really want to be here? I had to be seeking something that made me really think that this is the right spot. And there's so many different examples and so many different situations that you can't draw up like a perfect map of how it's going to look. But like, just think of that term. If you're somebody that's wanting to break out of your comfort zone and you're listening to this, it's like, how do I go hunting? How do I go looking for something? How do I get myself in the game? How do I get myself in the action? Like, there's going to be times where you're like, man, this doesn't make any sense at all. How is this ever going to work? And then all of a sudden it starts to play out. And like, if you just keep a positive attitude and you just keep trying different stuff, like it will work out and you're going to fail.
A guy who works, let's say, only gets to hunt 3 weekends, a month. I think he watches you guys to be the most efficient he can. Mm-hmm. And he goes to that public property. He wants to know, this is what I got to do. This is how I got to get it done, And so and my big thing that I'm trying to push, I think is door knocking. Now there's a stigma, I feel like still around door knocking a little bit when I tell people like, hey, you should go door knock. They're like, nah, I'm not going to door knock. That's weird. It's weird to do. And so I think I'm going to try to push like a big obviously I can't record people, but maybe just giving all the information of how I door knock, how I've landed the properties I have here in Springfield, showing people how to do it. Because, dude, I cannot tell you just how much awesome opportunity I have in this area because I've door knocked.
Oh,
And
it's so underrated.
Do it. Yeah, so underrated.
We do it all. We do it. So occasionally, in turkey season, definitely in turkey season compared to deer, I'd say deer, we always have plenty of opportunity. And in turkey, we do as well. But like, for example, I've filmed multiple hunts where the people that I'm filming decide that they want to start knocking on doors. And the success that we have is unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, like, so not everybody likes hunting public land, right? Like, it's something that I like and
yeah,
I enjoy, but like not everybody does. So it's like, if you don't like it, like, go ask permission. Like, it's out there still, and everybody acts like, oh, it's like everything's leased up. And I'm not saying that that's not more popular than it once was, but it's like, if you put as much effort into knocking on doors as, a public land hunter puts into scouting new properties, if you put the same amount of time into it, you're going to find as much opportunity as you could ever hope for. Because I mean, you just look at our success in getting permission during turkey season. It's just unbelievable. We'll literally be sitting there looking at turkeys across the road
on private property. Yeah. And you just come over.
And you knock on his door, he comes out and we're like, hey, we just wondering if we could chase those turkeys over there. He'd be like, yeah, I don't know how many times it's just like,
I know.
And maybe, I guess I'd just like to see more people do that in general too, because it opens up a whole different opportunity where otherwise there may not even be anybody hunting there. It's just, there's so much opportunity for it, I guess.
There's so much property. And it's like, people, I want people to be confident going in and knocking on their first door. I think that's going to be my sole focus, is just showing people. Do I have the perfect thing to say? No, I don't have the perfect thing to say, but I have something to say that I've wrote down. I've got it really pat. It's not perfect. I've gotten some get the heck out of here, but I want someone to be confident and have something to say and go up and because like I remember my first time, I was so nervous. And I went and knocked on a door. I took, and those little things too, like what car you drive, because we may not know about what we drive or what we look like, but people judge you. That will never change. People will always judge you, even if you're not. If I don't care what I drive. I don't have to have a nice truck. I don't have to have nice clothes. Like, I don't care. I just don't. I also don't care what other people think of me, right? But if you're knocking on a door, they're gonna judge you.
Yeah.
And they're gonna look at you. They're gonna look at what you drove into their driveway, and they're gonna go, okay, what do you got to say? In their minds. And so that's actually a big part. I drove my fiance's nice SUV, and my truck's okay, but I drove a nice brand new SUV to my first house, pulled in, I act like I was wearing I wore my work clothes, even though I wasn't in them, I put them on. And I went there, knocked on this guy's door. He's like 75 years old, lived by himself, had 60 acres and a bunch of crops around his property. I was in his house for the next hour and a half and got permission, first door. Now that may have gave me the confidence, but that was my first door, super nervous. And once that happened, I was off to the races. Now, my close rate after that was 100%, and then went to about, 10, 20%, but still it was like.
But if you're at 10%, if you're at 10% and you ask 100 places, I mean, obviously that's a big number, but like, that's a lot of property. And like,
it only takes one. Like, it really, like, what's 100-acre spot? That's about as much as I can handle. I landed 3 spots, or I've landed actually 6 now, but 3 that I pay attention to. But 1 spot now is really all I pay attention to, because it's got a bunch of deer. It's really all I care about. And that's all you need. 1 spot, 160 acres, 100 acres, 150 acres, 140,
I just would roll up and, these people, even too, like, very different ages, very different interests, whatever. I can always find a way to just like, I don't want to make it sound like I'm weaseling my way in either. It's just like, just have a conversation, just be friendly. It's just like, okay, my interest isn't cars at all. I know nothing about cars, but if I see somebody's got their car sitting out there, start talking to them about it. And
Yeah.
next thing you know, that like you gain their trust, and it's like, okay, like
Yeah.
this person's nice and gets along with me well. Like let's let them hunt. And next
Yeah.
thing you know, you've got, you know,
I know.
places to go and options too.
Yeah. I get like worked up about it because I love it and I
Mhm.
want other people to do it. Like I literally just it's so easy. Like in I'm so worked up because I love it so much is because I spent my first down here in Springfield, my first when I came down for school, I spent my first 3 years down here driving home 2 hours with my dad's every weekend to hunt like an
Mhm.
idiot. And I'll be honest with you, you guys watching you guys got me to go to and hunt public ground. Watching Seek One got me to knock on doors. I
Mhm.
100%. And that is what's so powerful about having you guys and other people get on YouTube. There's so many people have so many good ideas in the hunting industry and ways they hunt. Your way, this way, this way. Bring it all to YouTube. Let everybody see it so
Mhm.
they can
On
decipher
demand.
what they want to do. You know, it's on demand. It's like so. Anyways, yeah. If anybody's listening, please go knock on a door.
I
Give
want
it a
I
shot.
want I want people to knock on doors so that way less people like hunting public land.
Hey,
That's
I'll
my
get them.
selfish
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah, no, I don't like. If honestly, if I was a guy and I went to public land all the time, and I, let's say you said, do you like if you like hunting public land, that's great. But let's say there's a guy only going because that's all he has. Go like I want to show him how to knock on a door. Like it's
Mhm.
not what, and like I'll when I got a, well, I guess my phone's up there, but I got a picture. Um, this I just got this property last year, and this guy's awesome, and he goes, the typical, well, hey, I put a trail camera up. It hasn't been hunted in 20 years and it's grown up. Like the fields aren't fields. The fields are briar bushes that are,
Mhm.
tall. And I'm like, perfect. I can see all the little paths in there. Anyways, and he goes, I put out a trail camera by the pond in the middle of the property. Here's the deer, right? And of course, I was like, okay, all right, this guy's not gonna let me hunt. And I basically was like, I just want to bow hunt, bow hunting only. I just, and I'll give a little, I'll give it all away. But like my biggest thing is they can't know how we feel, like really feel about hunting. We can obviously be truthful and tell them how much we want to hunt, how much we want to do, all that. But you can't like, I feel like you can't just throw up all that enthusiasm about hunting because they don't feel that way. They're
Mhm.
going to think we're a little like something's off. And so I make it sound very casual, like I just want a place to get out of the house, go sit in a tree, as much as I can. Just it's my stress reliever. I love doing it, and I make it sound like so casual that they could relate. Because if
Mhm.
I relate to them, they've got a stress reliever in their life.
Mhm.
They do.
Right.
So if I
Right.
bring it back to them and say where they understand, oh, this is his stress reliever. This is what he likes to do. Instead of like, oh, I just want to, I just want to, get out there and just make it, you know what I'm saying? And so that's how I do it. And I basically, and if you live in the area, I always, if anybody's listening to this, if you live in that area, hey, I'm new to the area. I live in the area, whatever you are. If you're new to the area, hey, I'm new to the area and just looking for, or I'm a local. I live in the area, lived here for 40. That brings an enormous value to
Trust.
somebody.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
trust
trust
and
too.
value. I'm in a new city. I didn't grow up here. I'm in like a little small town now outside of Springfield, like 1,500 people. So it's the same thing. People are like, where are you from? When I say my last name or, and I'll tell them, and I relate it to, I don't know if people can do this. So if you move from a small town to another small town, whatever, my big thing is I relate. Like I grew up in a really small town. I grew up in this town just like Clever is where I live now.
Right.
Clever. I grew up in a town just like Clever by Jefferson City. It's called Lynn, Missouri. And they're like, oh, okay, I think I've heard of that. And I grew up on some property, and I kind of try to bring it right back to, because like you said, when they don't know you and they're not from the area, it's like, you just moved here. Who are you? Do I try?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes it's hard, I guess, to get through and like gain
It
that
is.
trust. But But with that being said too, it's just like, be friendly, be yourself, and also expect to know, honestly, expect it to not work. And then when it does, then you're not disappointed. And like, honestly, most of the time, like it's like a batting average, right? It's like if you're batting 300, like you're killing it. Honestly, if you're batting 100, you're killing it. It's like if you're batting 0.5,
you're killing it. That's one property out of your sample size. Like that's all you need, you know? No, I agree. And yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just,
you're good.
We're talking about knocking on doors. I'm like so in depth to it. Like I stop by on Thanksgiving and I bring them gift cards, right? Even the people that didn't say no, but didn't say yes. I never got a no out of them. I never got a yes out of them. And it comes Thanksgiving, they're getting that gift card to Murphin's supermarket for $25, right? It's just building that relationship. And every time, I deliver those gift cards, come on in, have coffee, hang out, and then the people that were never a no or never a yes, they're like, yeah, why don't you go out there and, and da-da-da-da, or ask them to shed hunt if you want to get your foot in the door. It's all about them.
Yeah, or small game.
Ask that question, but you said it. You said you lock in, you focus. Like earlier, I wanted to ask you, like, what are you thinking? And it's just a weird question to ask, but that's a good point. I
could paint a real quick picture of what that looks like, because I do think this is something that not a lot of people ask that question, and I always want to talk about it, and then obviously, like, there's more specifics that can be brought into the situation, but like, I always have an area in mind, right? Like big bucks have consistencies. Like they like water, they like really thick stuff, and they like diversity. So I always pick that spot on the map. And that's going to look a lot of different ways. It may be a ridge with a clear cut on the top of it. It may be, just a ridge that I know from past experience has acorns that I, or trees that I think will be dropping acorns at that time. It may be an oxbow of a river. It may be just an old field, like you had mentioned earlier, where it's an old overgrown field. But basically, I have this area in mind, and that's my area. Like, that's what I'm targeting today. Now, my strategy is going to vary based off of what that looks like. If I can get a visual advantage on it where I can get at a higher elevation and look into it, I'll usually start there. But if I feel like it's something that I got to get into to actually see it, then that's going to change too. Conditions are also the next thing that you're going to look at. Is like, okay, I've got my area. What conditions am I dealt with today? Everybody, you always hear people talk about like windy, wet conditions are the best days to still hunt. And like, while I don't disagree that that's a good condition, I don't think that that's the only condition. I think it can be dead calm and crunchy as all get out. And if you have a plan, you can be okay. You just have to have a plan. You can't just like, where I guess windy and wet gives you a little bit more freedom to be sloppy. I think that's why people like it, where you just have to, you remember how I said, like, it's a feeling. Yeah. That feeling takes a lot more focus on the crunchy calm day, right?
Yes.
So let's say, I don't know, what's like a habitat that give me a habitat and I'll kind of expand on it, I guess. Like, that's an easy way. Like, do you want to talk about like a river bottom? Do you want to talk about like a timber, or do you want to talk about like a grassy field or something, or open country? Either way, like, what's your experience in?
Yeah. River bottom, but goes up a real steep cliff. And then the top of the cliff, there's little cutout fields of crops. And then there's woods in between that. And then there's big timber. So little crop fields, and then a drop, well, not a big drop off, but enough where you have to get down it and get into the river bottom. But yeah.
Okay. So first thing, if I feel like I've got calm conditions and I don't have eyes on it, the cliff sounds intriguing to me. I'm probably going to be looking at the map and saying, okay, how can I get up on top? How can I get a high elevation and just glass down in there? Right. Yeah. So I'm not even worried about making a kill necessarily in that situation. Now, I do that a lot in any like anything west of the Missouri. I spend a lot of time like getting up on a high point glassing, right? Yeah. I'm going to choose to do that well before I go into any area. I love to get visuals on stuff and like kind of get an idea, because you can pattern things, and you might just watch something bed down, which is always the like ultimate goal. If you know where a stationary deer is, then you can make anything work, no matter what the conditions are. I believe that. It's going to be harder with different conditions, but obviously like that's always my number one goal. If I can bed a buck, if I can bed a target buck,
Yeah.
like, and honestly, the success of getting within bow range of those deer, whether I'm hunting or filming my buddies, has been like pretty dang good. Right. So it's like, if we can see one, our odds go through the roof. So
like,
that's the goal.
Yeah. Like you crawling down that little sandy road.
Yep.
One bedded.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that one, which, yeah, that guy there.
Yeah. 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 That's it.
That one was in New York. That one was bedded with the doe.
I see. Okay. I seen the New York one. I never watched that one, but I seen the thumbnail for that.
Yeah. That one's pretty wild. And then, and then there's this one up here that's behind the jackalope. He's kind of hard to see, but that's North Dakota.
Massive.
North Dakota buck. Actually, the one beside him is a Nebraska buck I shot with a muzzleloader that I spotted bedded. So it's like, consistently, me and my friends are getting within range of these bucks bedded. So like, anytime I can get a high point to where I can look down into cover, that's the starting point. And I'll spend sometimes like, a morning, evening, and a morning before I like ever dive into anything. Like, I'll spend a lot of time watching something. And honestly, in those situations, I'm not really prepared to shoot even. Like, my bow's with me, but I don't have an arrow. Now I'm glassing. I'm looking into this cover. I'm not necessarily expecting. I'm going to that location to get eyes on something else. Not because I think a deer is going to go through there. And I'm willing to like give up my chance of getting one right now to just get eyes. So that's like the number one thing. Now, next, like, let's say I don't have that opportunity. Let's say we cut that cliff or these higher elevations, and we'll just make that area straight river bottom with, fields and stuff. What's next is okay, we're going to look at, where are these X's? Where are these places that I think deer are going to be? So on a river, I'm looking at big bends of a river. I'm looking at like thick willow, grassy, brushy habitat. And a lot of times you can just find that on a map, right? It's like, if you're looking for habitat change, you can a lot of times see that on some sort of aerial photo on X. So I pin spots on my map that I think are going to be good. And if I can't get that visual on those locations, then I'm going to go in and try to still hunt my way through those spots. And from the truck to those spots, I'm not as worried about my sound. A lot of times, me and who I'm hunting with, whether I'm the cameraman or the hunter, we're more spread out. We're kind of just like going through, looking at stuff. We're moving fast. We're not really worried about spooking things as much. It's more like just a guy going to get to his tree stand, right? But we're always on point in that situation too, where like, we always know where we're at. We kind of, we're still playing, you're still hunting, but like, you're not really zoned in. You're not getting that feeling yet of like, okay, I'm zoned in. Now, let's say there's a big bend of the river, and, there's, let's just say, for the sake of saying a number, 300 yards of really quality habitat within that bend of the river.
Yeah.
And I get to that transition line where it becomes that habitat break that I want. Maybe that's like, a lot of times in a river, you'll kind of get that, like, right where it drops, there'll be that like willowy, thick, I guess, edge.
Yeah.
Let's say it hit that transition, and I really need to tone it back. Like, this is now where a buck could be in here anywhere. We might bump one. We might look up and one's cruising back to bed. And let's just say, for the sake of giving the date, it is October 23rd. It's like, we think there's probably bucks bedded in there. We think that the time of the year is, bucks are still on a food source, kind of more on a pattern, but they're also starting to add a little bit of a loop to their like rut cruising. And I think a lot of that starts happening at night, but it may make them a little late to bed. It may make them a little early to get out of bed. So I'm going to try to get to that spot at, about prime time, or not necessarily at prime time, but a little bit before, to where, I kind of got time. But a lot of times, honestly, man, and this is abnormal for what a lot of people say, like, I want to be moving when the deer are moving, right? I don't want to be there. I don't necessarily want to roll up right into the heart of the habitat at 1:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Because I'm probably then definitely going to bump stuff. Where if I can be moving through it kind of at prime time when they're moving, it might set me off to their location and their pattern.
And get
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Get an eyes on them.
Yeah.
So let's say it gets dark at most of the country at that time. It's getting dark at about 6:30.
Yeah,
probably
6:30.
So let's say it's 4, and I get to the edge of that habitat. First thing I'm doing is I'm obviously looking for a fresh sign. If there's if there's a lot of rubs coming out, or if there's big fresh tracks, just kind of taking note of that, kind of getting an eye of where all the sign is. And then I'm taking my condition too, and I've got this planned out. Like if I've got a little bit of wind, for example, to where you get maybe a 15-mile-an-hour breeze and then it stops. My favorite condition ever is dry breeze that stops, to where you've got a pretty strong breeze, but then it stops, because that gives you time. Now you're moving when it's breezy. Now you're stopped when it's not, and you can hear. Because if it was wet, see, that's one of the, I personally don't love windy wet. It can be good, but if you have windy,
it gives you and the deer is like, then how else are you going to locate each other?
Exactly.
Besides
visual, but it's also really hard to see deer when everything's blowing around. So I personally like dry with a breeze that kind of comes and goes.
Yes.
There's always a consistent something, but maybe something kicks it up a notch.
Yeah.
And most of these situations that, we look, if we were to go down the line of the bucks that I've shot in the last 5 years, is the majority of them are on those conditions where it's like, just, it's like the perfect day, like everything's just good. And I think that if you've got, now don't get me wrong, like I've also had wet and windy, like the buck that I shot in Ohio this year with the muzzleloader. Only reason I shot him is it was wet and windy.
Yeah.
Like that's a different situation though. But in this situation, again, mid to late October, we got a sunny day, calm, or windy to calm, but dry. So we're working down an edge, and as we're working down that edge, if you get to a spot where maybe you can see a bunch, maybe on your very first day, you're like, and this is all gut too. Like this is the important part. This is all just like in the moment. Let's say we break to a spot where it's like, man, we could set up right on this edge. We could see 100 yards down through there, and anything coming bedded along the river coming out, headed to, maybe one of those ag fields that you talked about. Maybe in that situation, we just hang up. And maybe we don't have that planned. Maybe we do. But it's like, hey, today we could just hang out and we could sit here and watch. And if all of a sudden, a target buck comes out of there, then we can make the next decision. Okay, are we going for him right now? Or are we going to wait and try to pattern him for tomorrow? Well, most of the time, I'm going to say go for him right now if you can see him. So if we've got that wind, it's the same thing. Like you're moving low and slow, but only moving when you get a gust, right? So it's like if you've got that, and that's when all of a sudden you start to tune it in. Like you tune it in, or even if you don't see anything and you don't get to that spot where you can see a lot and you continue to move through the piece the whole time, it's just like, how am I going to hear or see something before it hears or sees me or smells me? Obviously the wind in your face is important, but like if I get a breeze, I find myself doing this like to the point where I don't even know I'm doing it anymore, is I could be sitting there like talking with my hunting partner, and we're standing almost in the wide open, and we're standing there, and it's calm, and we're kind of listening. We're like, hey, you want to move up? It's like, yeah, we'll move up. Like, I think we can get up to that next tree, and we can kind of hang out there. And then all of a sudden the wind starts going, and I start moving. It's like, it becomes to the point where it's like second nature. You don't even recognize you're doing it. But I look at it later, and I'm like, oh man, I was doing that, and I didn't even like really plan to. It just, the wind picks up, or any sort of noise, a plane flies over, okay, now we're moving, and just tuning into that. Like you got to be like really good at listening. And turkey hunting, again, we talked about this earlier, turkey hunting teaches you how to do that.
It does.
Like everything with turkeys is listening, but deer is the same way, because if you're close to a big buck, he's going to be making some noise, not always making a lot, but he's going to be making some. They're sometimes pretty sneaky, but like always just thinking, how can I be quieter than what he's going to be? And you can be. I mean, I'm saying all this, and I've always got somebody with me doing this. So like, it's not like
I just have to say, yeah.
So like, that's a whole nother factor that, so if we can do it as a group of two, like certainly one hunter can do that. Right.
Definitely. For sure.
So, I guess with that being said, then we're just going to continue to work through an area and, depending, do we bump anything? Do we see anything moving naturally? Is there a big sign in there? That's going to dictate whether we come back or not. If we see a bunch of good sign in there and we see a spot that it's like, man, maybe tomorrow morning we're going to come in here and hunt it from a different angle and try to catch something coming back. Or there are a lot of deer in here. We saw a bunch of small bucks and does, but how do we find the big buck? Well, we're going to look at it from a different angle and, maybe approach that differently the next time. But it's a kind of this evolution. And a lot of times I go through and hunt an area like 1, 2, 3 times, give or take, and then move on if it's no good, or just go in once, it's no good, and just keep moving. That's what happens the majority of the time is you're like, okay, I've picked that X. I went in there, it didn't really look that good. And maybe it is. I mean, honestly, most of those places that have really quality habitat that are hard to get to, like there's going to be a buck spending some time there. But what I'm always looking for is the spot that he's there mostly. Like I want to find a spot where he's there most days. And when you find that, there's a lot of signs telling you that you just found it. There's a lot of rubs, there's a lot of scrapes, and there's a lot of big tracks. And if you find that and you're seeing other deer, like you're in good shape. So with that being said, does that bring up any questions where you're like, okay, you just said all this stuff, but this part doesn't make sense?
No, actually not at all. I mean, I like the way you broke down how you handle the day before the first day or the day you're not totally set bound on shooting a deer. You're really focused on the preparation, going in there and
here's a great example of what that could also look like. Okay. So let's say I hunted an area in Minnesota one time with Jake for a series of hunts for about a week. It was actually where we had the public land challenge in 2018 and big ag fields.
Good example of that, about those vantage points.
Yeah. A good example was just in Minnesota. Like one thing I wish I could go back and do was just play it, like take it back, right? Observe a little bit more, because an example that I think of is like, okay, if I'm set up and it's that mid-October time frame, for example, like if I see a wad of does come out on this side of the field, and then I see a bachelor group of, year-old bucks and 2-year-old bucks come out over here, well, I can assume he's probably over there somewhere a little bit deeper where those other bucks were. Now, that's going to change on the time of the year. Like I'm also not going to put as much it's going to change, I guess. I'm still going to be trying to get those observations in November, but I'm looking for different stuff then. Then I'm looking for a buck with a doe. So what I'm looking for changes quite a bit. But, in earlier parts of the season, I'm really just thinking like, using that reference to where I'm not even trying to find necessarily lay eyes on the big buck, but at least get an idea of where I think he could be coming from based off of where his little buddies are coming from, because that tells you a whole lot. He's probably not going to come from where the does and fawns did. He's probably coming from the buck bedding area where a bunch of other smaller deer are coming from. And then also, this is the number one thing, is having like a plan always. Like I never, ever take a step and don't have a plan to how I'm going to draw as I'm making that step, starting that step, or finishing that step. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I didn't even think about that, honestly, until you
So like
that.
If I'm about to go through something,
that's every serious step you take.
So like think about it like this. We've got two of us, and I'm leading the way. I've got the bow and there's somebody behind me. We're playing it pretty close. So that separation, this is irrelevant to most people, but like this is something that we talk about all the time, is like, how much cushion does the camera guy need? And I'm a camera guy too. So I don't want to sound that. I really hate when people like say camera guy, like he's some peasant. Like I'm also this person. So like, depending how the situation is, I change my distance between that person if I'm the person with the camera, and I expect them to do the same if I'm the hunter. So like if we're in the jungle and everything's tight, close quarters, I want them right off my right hip, because as a shooter, they can be right in my pocket. They're right down my gun barrel or my arrow, right? It's like they're right in over my shoulder.
Makes for a smaller silhouette too, because they're kind of all in line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Everything's tight. But then if we're going down a trail on a ridge top and it's wide open Forest Service road, I mean, we can be a long way away. Sometimes we'll be 100 yards away. So that cushion varies based off of what our objective is, where we're at, conditions, the list goes on. And I feel like I really enjoy that. It's something that fascinates me because it's not even something that really most people even have to deal with. But okay, we're moving through an area and things are really tight and we feel like there's deer around us. Maybe we've been hearing deer, maybe we've been seeing deer, maybe the signs here, and we're in thick bedding cover. We approach something that's in front of us. Well, that's a unique obstacle, right? Because you probably can't shoot through it. So you got to get on the other side of it to get a shot. But to get on the other side of it, it's probably going to take some particular moves, right? And now you got two guys. Well, first off, you can film through more than you can shoot. So I'm not as worried about him getting through it right away. I'm more worried about me getting on the other side of it. That way I can shoot. So as I'm about to do that, I always stop at that obstacle and listen, because if I'm standing there and all of a sudden something starts to go down, like I know I got to make that move faster. I got to get through it right now if something's starting to come through here. But if I stop, give myself a listen, make sure the coast is clear, then I know I can take my time through it. So what that looks like is you move through it, you kind of get, let's say you get up under this tree limb and you do that quietly. But while you're doing that, you're making noise. That could be doing multiple things. That could be covering your ears to hearing something coming in. Or it could also be making a deer think, there's somebody over there rustling around. I better go check them out, which happens all the time when you're still hunting, is you're calling deer all the time. You got to be always thinking that I am a deer. I'm a deer moving through this cover. Same thing when you're when you're turkey hunting, you're moving through the woods scratching. You're a turkey. You're trying to mimic the sound of a turkey to get that gobble response. Same thing when you're still hunting. You're sounding like a deer, which is going to make some bucks approach you.
Yeah.
So when I get on the other side of that, the very last thing I want to happen is the guy I'm with to come right through that right after me, because we're sacrificing our hearing again. Things can happen like that. If there's a bedded deer in that first listen before I went through the obstacle, okay, nothing's nothing. And then I start to move through that obstacle and I shake a branch more than I want. Maybe that buck stands up and starts coming. And maybe he was only 50 yards and in less than a minute, he's going to be in bow range.
And your partner is going to cause you not to hear that 50 yards of walking to you.
Exactly. And again, if you always got that mentality that I could be calling deer, you're always, and man, when you hit it, when you get that feeling and your partner also has that feeling, it's like you're bulletproof. Like it's so fun and you just hit that stride. So I get to the other side of that obstacle, I stop and listen, because again, he can film through more, like he can film through brush. I can't shoot through brush. Yeah. So we stop and we listen again. And then, okay, now it's his turn to get on the other side. And he comes over to me, we stop and we listen again. That's really tuned in. Now, obviously conditions and everything are going to change how fast you can do that. But, generally speaking, that's the steps. And like, man, it's just so fun when you finally start to get in that zone.
But no, I appreciate it, Zach. Honestly, it's been a pleasure talking with you. I could sit here all day.
I know, me too. I actually really should get some work done as well, but I have a good time telling stories, man.
Yeah, I love telling stories, listening to stories. It's a blast.